Hello, this is manic.mercurian with your birth chart reading. This reading will be for Friday, July 14th, 1989 at 2:15 p.m. in Manhattan, New York. So this means you have Sun in Cancer, Moon in Sagittarius with Scorpio rising. And where to begin here? So, one of the first things I noticed with your chart is that there's definitely an overwhelming dominance of water and fire. And in astrology, these are the elements that more have to do with emotion and passion. These are the less logical elements. They're more subjective, but they're also more passionate, more emotional, and they tend to make a person more charismatic as well because others, they feel they can trust you. That it makes you relatable. Basically, others feel that they can place you emotionally, so it makes others generally more comfortable with you. What else can we talk about? Having Sun in Cancer in particular is also one of these potentially charismatic placements because it makes you non-threatening, right? Cancer tends to come across kind of innocent and very comfortable, I guess, very familiar. So you come across to others as being familiar, even when you may not be. You may be meeting complete strangers, but they feel like they know you already. That's common when you have Sun in Cancer. What's interesting in your chart, though, is that you have this combination of Sun in Cancer with Moon in Sagittarius, which is a completely different energy. It's dramatically different. So typically what we would expect from just having Sun in Cancer would be someone who kind of keeps to themselves. You prefer security, you're not really taking any risks. But for your story, it would be much different because having the combination involving Moon and Sagittarius, this means that deep down you are actually very much interested in risk taking. You want to adventure, you want to get out of your comfort zone, you want to expand. You probably don't really understand boundaries. You don't want any boundaries. You want to just keep pushing the limits, going farther. With Moon and Sagittarius, you feel so strongly. You are so passionate, and whatever you do, you want to do it all or nothing. You really give your all, so to speak. And again, that's kind of where that soulfulness comes in, that passion, and also again, this is what makes others so drawn to you, and so they feel so connected to you because you come across so honest and so relatable. And so it may be tempting to use this to your advantage. I'm not saying that you do necessarily. That depends on free will, which is something that I can't predict based on your chart. But I would say with your chart, it would be very tempting to use that kind of charisma sort of different ways, if that makes sense. But either way, you come across charismatic, you come across confident. And the combination of Sun in Cancer with Moon in Sagittarius makes me think that you probably very much enjoy connecting with other people. You want to get out of your shell. You want to mingle. You want to meet people. Don't take this the wrong way, but with this combination, I almost feel like you're kind of like buzzed all the time, like how maybe like an average quote unquote person would be after a couple of drinks. That's how you are all the time. You're cheerful, you're outgoing, you're a little bit prone to risk taking. That's at least what I would would kind of speculate based on these placements here. What else can we talk about? And that's not to say that you're not intelligent at all. That's not what I mean by that. So I hope you don't take it the wrong way. There's definitely a lot of intelligence that comes from this combination. And I think that this may be something that's kind of overlooked. You may come across as being the funny one, the entertaining one, the charismatic one. At least that's what I would kind of guess based on your placements. But I think what many people may not realize is that you do actually have some pretty impressive intelligence. With Moon and Sagittarius, you have the combination of being a feeler and a thinker. I think you'd probably lean a little bit more toward the feeler side since you have Sun in Cancer, which is generally the most emotional sign. But with that feeling or emotion comes a lot of intuition and emotional intelligence. And so, there's a lot of intelligence there. And then also with Moon in Sagittarius, that is an intellectual placement. So you're basically a feeler and a thinker. Again, I'd say you're probably like 60% feeler, but maybe 40% thinker. It does look like, these placements suggest that you would be interested in philosophy and kind of analyzing things. And, you could definitely keep up with some pretty impressive like abstract philosophy and, analysis, things like that. This is especially true because you have the combination of Sun and Mercury both being in the ninth house. So that would indicate that you are very interested in higher learning. You want to ponder the bigger questions. You want to understand, how does the world work? How do metaphysics work? you may be very drawn toward spirituality, religion, science, maybe a combination of those, because any of these are all just different ways of, well, among other things, those are different ways of explaining the universe, right? As well as like morality and things like that. So those placements suggest that you do have that kind of higher mind. You are interested in higher learning, and you could be an excellent student as well. I do think you might be a little bit bored though. Like, it may be difficult for you to just sit in a classroom and have like that very rigid kind of structure where you have to sit in this desk at this time every day, and just sit and be very passive and observe. I think that would be very difficult for you, because Moon in Sagittarius suggests that you're a person who you want to get out there. You want to learn hands on. You are probably an excellent student of life, and your placement suggests you probably have a wide variety of life experiences, because again, you're adventurous. You're prone to risk taking. I think in a way, this is basically how you learn. This is how you, to some extent, this is how anybody learns, but especially you learn through experience. You wanna get in the ring, so to speak. You want to get your hands on whatever you're learning. It is kind of interesting though. You do have Scorpio rising with Pluto close by in the first house. So this means that you come across as intense. Others can tell, you have a certain magnetism about you. You come across as powerful, magnetic. I guess I already said that. Mysterious, even if you're just casually minding your own business, doing nothing in particular, others will sense that, oh, there's something going on with this person. There's something behind the scenes. This person's got an agenda. And you may or may not have an agenda. It's just kind of a vibe that you give off. You come across as powerful and mysterious, and this is something that you can definitely take advantage of as well. This is great for like leadership positions, for example. I've also found that when you have Scorpio rising, how do I explain this? This is based on my own experience, but people who have Scorpio rising, you know where you stand with them, because in my opinion, or in my experience, they are very excellent when it comes to communicating themselves in a very efficient way. It's almost like they use the least amount of words or effort possible in a way that is very effective though. Like, they say a lot with very few words, if that makes sense. But they let you know exactly where you stand with them. I don't know how else to say that, but with the Scorpio rising, they know their limits, they know their boundaries, they know how to represent themselves with other people. Because Scorpio rising as well, there's a lot of perceptive and intuitive ability that comes from really any Scorpio placement, but especially Scorpio rising with Pluto nearby. This shows that you're constantly like hyper vigilant on the world around you, on people, on situations. You're constantly observing, watching, learning. You have this combination of intuition with emotion and logic. You're a deep feeler, a deep thinker, and you've got that really strong intuitive ability as well. And the combination of those senses and whatever you want to call them, perceptions, that combination is actually what makes you potentially so powerful. And again, it's something that I keep seeing in different parts of the chart. So, but that's, Scorpio rising is a part of that, Scorpio corresponds to the middle of fall, when everything is kind of dying around you. So when you have major placements there, like Scorpio rising, that's why it makes you so hyper vigilant. That's why you take in so much information. You're feeling so strongly. You're thinking so much. That's the reason why it's kind of a survival tactic, I guess you could say. But although there is a certain level of insecurity and kind of restlessness that can come from that, there's also so much ability. There's so much creativity, and what you do with that awareness is kind of up to you. But it makes you have X-ray vision, so to speak. You can see right through other people. I think that's very much substantiated by many of your placements, actually. That you've got that really strong intuition, probably more than anything. So a lot of the time, you just kind of know the answer. You don't know how you got there. You can't show the work necessarily. You just know the answer. You know what you know. You don't know how you know. You just know it, if that makes sense. And this is actually very powerful. I think this is more powerful than logical ability because it's faster than logical ability. You don't have to take the time to go, okay, let me analyze this. If A equals B, B must equal C. You don't have to do any of that. You just step into a situation and you just kind of know what's going on. You just have a feeling. And it's important to recognize that intuition is not always correct. Just like, if we're thinking or feeling, our thoughts and feelings may not 100% of the time be based on reality. Same with intuition, but still, it's a very powerful ability to have, and I would speculate that yours is very strong. Something I can help but notice is that Venus and Mars are conjunct in Leo in the 10th house. So basically both of them are in a very strong position. They're strengthening each other because they're conjunct. They are married, so to speak. But also both Venus and Mars are pretty much at home in Leo. Technically neither is domicile there, but I would say Venus is in joy in Leo, and Mars does pretty well in any of the fire signs. And these are both the planets of desire and attraction. They both represent how you get what you want. We'll talk a lot about these in the romantic part of the reading at the very end. But I just want to just bring these up because, first of all, having them conjunct means that your desires are very strong, especially in Leo. How do I put this? So you know exactly what you want. You know what you want. You're very set on it. You're probably a little bit stubborn, which is not a bad thing necessarily. There's pros and cons with every theme or trait in astrology. The cons would be, you might be really set on what you want, and you might not realize, is what you want, is that actually practical? Is that actually what's in your best interest? How is that going to affect other people if you do get what you want? Is that best in the long run? What else? Things like that, you may not have time for, you may not have the awareness of, you just want what you want, and that's that. However, the reason why I say that's not completely a bad thing, I think that's very powerful. So many of us, especially those people that are interested in astrology, we often don't know what we want. We don't have boundaries. We don't set intentions. So I do think it's very powerful that you're so sure of what you want. You know what you want and how to get it. Sure, that might be misguided at times, just like, any of us might not always know what we might not truly know what's best for us. But at least knowing what you want, it gives you a sense of direction. It gives you a kind of purpose, so to speak. So you at least know the direction you're going. You may not have the whole trail mapped out, so to speak, but you at least know you've got a compass, I guess, if that makes sense. But let's talk about there are challenges that come with that though. So having Venus and Mars conjunct in Leo, you have the potential of being consumed by your desires. You feel desire so strongly, and I'm talking about kind of any sense of desire. There's probably a really heavy sex drive there. To be honest, there's a heavy sex drive that runs through most of your placements: Cancer, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Leo. Again, these are water and fire. They're the most emotional. They're the most passionate. So there is a lot of that kind of energy there. But specifically with Venus and Mars, again, they just have to do with attraction in general. So whether that's sexual or whether that's, whatever you want, whatever your ambitions are, your goals, your desires, whatever you find compelling, it's very strong, especially because both are in Leo. Leo is fixed fire. So whatever you want, you know exactly what you want right off the bat. As soon as you meet a person, you probably know exactly, if you're attracted to them or not. And it's not just about physical appearances. Again, you are very intuitive. You can kind of see through situations or see through people. So it's all about energy at the end of the day, right? So whatever that situation is or that person, you can walk into a room and know exactly okay, I want this, I don't want that, etc., etc. That's admirable. You know what you want. But again, that can potentially lead you to some really dark places if you're so consumed by your desire and there's no longer term vision to kind of back it up. If there's no wisdom there, for example, Bill Clinton has Venus and Mars conjunct. I believe Joe Biden also has Venus and Mars conjunct. I knew of a porn star that had Venus and Mars conjunct. Those are just a few examples. But, those are just three random examples. But those are all people that have gotten in trouble for being consumed by their desires, let's just say. So That's just an example. Um, so I mean, I simultaneously admire that placement, but also would be cautious with that. There it looks like a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. Venus and Mars both in Leo. Leo is a fun-loving sign. So with Venus and Mars there, it shows that you really want to have a good time. You want to have fun. The problem is you may not know when to stop. You want to keep going. Like, remember, it's fixed fire. So you've got that endurance, so to speak. You want to find that pleasure, tap into that, and just keep going on and on forever. Depending on how you use that, you just have to pair some wisdom with it. You do have that intuition. You've got that wisdom. So as long as you are kind of keeping your head, so to speak, and finding what will truly be pleasurable in the long run, there's nothing wrong with that. But then, there is that other tendency. I could see how this could bring about like addictions, or, maybe just partying too much and, calling out of work the next day, or, whatever it is. It's not necessarily a bad omen. It depends on how you use it. I mean, just like anything, I guess. But part of the reason why this is such a strong dynamic is because of the way it's positioned. Both Venus and Mars are conjunct in the 10th house at the very top of your chart. So others see you for this. This is not like this strong pleasure dynamic that I'm talking about. This isn't something tucked away in your home life, or it's not like some secret that you have. This is actually broadcasted out into the universe, into the public. This is what you're seen for. It's what you're known for. I would speculate that you might be very like physically attractive because of this. And it's not just strict physicality. It's the energy that you have. You come across pleasurable. You come across like someone who knows how to have a good time. Again, this is it's really powerful. You probably come across as like sexy, sexual, attractive. That's what you're seen as in public, in your career, whatever it is. Also having Venus and Mars, the two planets of desire and pleasure, putting them in the 10th house, which has to do with career and reputation. It goes both ways. You would be seen in public and in your career as being pleasurable, and you would also have a lot of fun. You would find pleasure in your career or in your reputation as well. So having those there does point to, having a very successful, very prominent career and reputation. It shows that you're very charismatic. You already have lots of other placements in your chart that indicate strong charisma, but these two especially are some really big money makers. I love blowing my nose in all my readings. It's really great. But what else can I say? I know I talked a lot about that, but it is a kind of an interesting, very powerful dynamic in my opinion. Yeah, I guess I pretty much finished that. I mean, just that you're going to be seen for someone who is pleasurable. So again, that in itself is very powerful. You can definitely use that to have a really successful career, successful reputation. But on the other hand, again, whatever again, like you experience such an insane, intense kind of level of attraction and passion that you can get lost in it. And everyone's going to see that, so to speak. Like, I'm not trying to make you paranoid, but, I do think this is mostly a favorable placement, but I could see some pretty intense challenges that would come with that as well. Anyway, what else can we talk about? Oh, okay. So kind of just going off that, I'm so sorry. All right. You also have South Node at 26 degrees Leo, so it looks like I'm not wrong in thinking that this is a very important, very affecting part of your chart. Because having South Node in Leo in the 10th house, we'll talk about this a lot more in the next chapter, but it means that this is not just some phase that you're going through in this lifetime. This is something really heavy that's been going on in multiple lives, dealing with fame and power. It's really interesting because the last chart I read was kind of weirdly similar. I'm going to save that for the next chapter, actually. But I just want to stress that much of like the best and the worst parts of your life would have to do with like fame, desire, power. You've got that thing that everybody wants, but again, there's a lot of trials and tribulations that would come with that as well. It's not all that it's cracked up to be. You may present to the world that you have this really perfect really pleasurable life. And maybe you kind of do in some sense, but again, like, um, I don't know how to put it into words, but I mean, there's a lot of downsides that can come with that. It can be alienating to be a public figure, to have a strong reputation, because even though everyone knows you and everyone sees you, it's kind of ironic because it actually kind of isolates you in a way. Um, what else? It can also just feel exposing, like you have no privacy. Everyone's constantly, you're constantly the joke, you're constantly the entertainment, you exist just for everyone else's pleasure. It can kind of feel that way, so to speak. Not that I'm speaking from experience at all, but so anyway, we'll talk about that more later. But let me kind of just look around real quick, just kind of bounce around. You do have Jupiter in the 8th house, which I think is interesting. 8th house has to do with shared resources, like intimacy, investments. It's kind of how we support ourselves in the long run with other people. It's like the house that has to do with cooperation and, investing with other people or companies, etc. So having Jupiter there, Jupiter expands everything, it blows everything up, and generally this would bring abundance to you. So you may do very well with your investments. You may do very well with, again, like any shared resources, bank accounts, credit cards, stocks, whatever it is, inheritance, all of that, even like taxes to some extent. You may do very well there. There could be a lot of abundance for you in this life, as indicated by Jupiter there. But there is a slight downside that can come with this placement as well. Jupiter, it can lead to excess, or it could go the other way. There could be like, you could quickly spiral into some pretty impressive debt as well with Jupiter in the 8th house. Generally speaking, I would say this is more of a positive thing. This would indicate some abundance for you in this life. But just keep in mind, it could go the other way very quickly. Things can spiral either way. You could your investments, your finances could spiral positively very quickly, and they could spiral the other way very quickly, And I feel like I'm hearing someone saying, like, isn't that true for everyone? Honestly, no. It's not. You have this potential, and this is something that's backed up in the rest of your chart as well. Having so much fire and water, again, you're a person that comes across so captivating, so entertaining. I think with those types of personalities, there's that kind of potential for like a boom and bust sort of cycle, if that makes sense. Like when you're so charismatic, so fiery, so powerful, etc., you have that kind of intensity there, if that makes sense. Okay, honestly, I think that's pretty much it for this chapter. This next chapter, I like to lay it on pretty heavy. You know the drill at this point. You've gotten a couple readings from me. Well, I guess I'm not sure who's going to be listening to this, so I'm just going to go over it really briefly. So I like to talk about your past lives a little bit, and then, I like to talk about how is that relevant for this life. It is very relevant because it brings up your innate strengths, your innate challenges. And then we'll talk about, where's your potential, where are you going in this life? And then somewhere in there, we'll also talk about your upbringing and childhood to some extent. All right, so past lives, I really just looked to the south node for this. North node is at 26 degrees Aquarius in the 4th house. So that means south node is exactly opposite. It's at 26 degrees Leo in the 10th house. So this placement, more than any other, to me indicates that you were someone in a past life who was very famous and very prominent. I can't see exactly the details of that, but you were someone, you were either royalty, or you were a business owner, you were a celebrity, you were, whoever you were like on top. You were the person who everyone recognized, everyone saw. You were the center of attention. You were very prominent. You could probably handle attention very well. You knew how to compose yourself in this type of way. What else can I say about that? On the one hand, it may have been very self-centered. You may have been very egotistical, very, hyper confident, and just kind of full of yourself, like the whole world revolved around you, so to speak. But on the other hand, being in those types of roles, all the responsibility may have been kind of resting with you. You were the one who may have been kind of in charge of it all, so to speak. You were the one running the whole show, taking care of the community in some type of way. Even if it was in a more entertaining type of role, even that it's simultaneously very selfish, but also very generous at the same time, if that makes sense. So that's a huge theme there. So again, I can't see the specifics of that, but this is extremely relevant for coming into this life because it kind of explains why, like even from your youth, you would have been someone who was getting a lot of attention. Others saw you, they recognized you, you were funny, you were entertaining, you were captivating, whatever it was. Maybe you were very talented. I don't know. It was probably a combination of those. But, people saw you, they enjoyed your company, your appearance, whatever. You were probably a very lively child. It is interesting though that I see as an Aquarius, so that would point to you as a child being extremely intelligent, a very eccentric, very unusual, kind of provocative. I see an Aquarius as kind of the prodigy placement, I would call it. So you were someone who is extremely gifted. You were the gifted child. You were the intelligent one. You were the one that was either very, I don't know exactly what it was. You were either very book smart, knew way more than your peers, or maybe you had some kind of insane gift, talent, skill, etc. What that was, I'm not sure, but this kind of combines to paint the picture of someone who is like special, someone who is different. And again, there's this whole theme of everyone kind of envied you to some extent. On some level, this is what we all want. You had that public recognition. You were the cool one, the different one, the special one, right? But again, I do think this is it's not all it's cracked up to be. There's different, astrology teaches you that there's different challenges that come with every type of lifestyle, I think. So for you, this would be extremely alienating, like I talked about earlier. And then again, also, you would be kind of isolated. I think oftentimes you would go between like feeling so loved by everyone and like kind of riding that high. But then other times, it's like you can't truly relate to anyone though. Everyone is kind of like laughing with you or enjoying you. But at the same time, like, it makes it difficult for you to just kind of level with someone and just kind of vibe with them and feel equal, you know what I mean? And have that like true connection. So although it can be a high having such a public recognition, I think it leaves many people craving, or kind of lacking a more intimate connection. You may have not had that more private, more intimate connection with anyone. And I'm not just talking romantically, just any kind of like, even like a family member or friend, just having that like chill, close bond. You may have kind of lacked that to some extent. But anyway, let's talk about these past life themes again. So coming into this life, especially with Venus and Mars in that same area as the South Node, it points to you being very comfortable with this whole type of role. There are those challenges there that I talked about, but it's going to be very familiar to you because you've done this in past lives. So it's going to be easy to just step back into that whole role of, I'm the popular one. There's probably, I can't see what exactly it is about you that is part of this like fame or popularity. Again, I'd speculate you're probably very funny, very captivating. You're probably a very great storyteller. And maybe you probably have some like abilities that go along with that as well. Like there could be like musical ability. I wouldn't be surprised about that at all, or like some other kind of like artistic or performing ability. And again, there's some kind of really strong intelligence there too. So where was I going with that? I just forgot what I was talking about. Something about how it's going to be very comfortable for you to just step into the same role in this life and just be like, I'm having this really strong reputation. Again, you may be very successful with your career. Maybe that's part of it. That's going to be familiar to you. And I would say go for it. Have fun, enjoy that. As long, do what makes you happy, right? Like Fight Club. If that's what makes you happy, then do it. I do think there would be a lot of satisfaction and success that could be kind of gleaned from that. However, on the other hand, there is the North Node as well, which is indicating the direction that you are evolving toward in this life. And North Node is in 4th house Aquarius, so it's kind of suggesting, be the famous one, be the popular one, if that makes you happy. But I do think that the more you just stay with that, the more it will lead to your downfall. That's typically what the South Node indicates. So on the one hand, it is very comfortable because you've done it in past lives. But if you start to just repeat the same exact themes that you've done in past lives, I think our soul kind of rebels from that because it would sort of be a waste. It would be a waste of this lifetime not to use those strengths from past lives, but it would also be a waste to just completely repeat the past lives and not branch out or learn anything in this life. So that's where the North Node comes in, which is basically, to me, it's suggesting learning how to stay at home, learning how to be an outsider. You don't always have to be the center of attention. Um, learn to just kind of maybe just chill or be alone or be with people that are very close to you. I think in a way, it's almost kind of backward for you because most of us would expect to be the most comfortable at home or with people that are close to us. But I think for you, especially at a young age, this might be actually very uncomfortable. You might not really know how to just be in these kind of more low energy environments, if that makes sense. How to be more kind of emotionally vulnerable and to have these kind of deeper, like close knit relationships, if that makes sense. This whole area may actually be very foreign to you. Again, especially at a young age. So although this is an uncomfortable area, the more time you spend kind of developing this part of your life, there is the potential for a lot of success and satisfaction there. That's what the North Node would typically indicate. So what else can I talk about there? And then also, North Node is an Aquarius. Aquarius is the outsider. So just, learning to be the outsider sometimes, learning to be outside of the box and not on stage, so to speak, learning to be just another person in the crowd. I think that this whole dynamic it would be initially very uncomfortable, maybe even unsettling for you because it would be kind of unfamiliar. But on the other hand, I think it may be really desirable for you. I think it may be kind of like a vacation or something, or it may be very tantalizing for you. So, as always, it's all about balance, balancing, it's this is gonna sound really cheesy, but I'm almost picturing you're like a star. So it's like go out and like shine bright, whatever, be that charismatic person, get that attention, do that hustle or whatever you're doing, do all that, but then also like come home though and hang out with your significant other, hang out with your spouse, kids, best friend, whatever it is, come out and just hang, like chill by the fire or something, or the TV, whatever. So anyway, there's a huge lesson there. It's really easy for me to just ramble on about these things, but these are things that take, decades for us to learn. I'm sure you've learned a lot about this already, but I don't want to come across as lecturing or anything like that. But since we're talking about these challenges, let's talk about another one. So Saturn is in Capricorn. I just read a chart really interesting, really similar to this one, which is interesting. Saturn is in third house Capricorn. So this to me would indicate that you, especially at a young age, you would struggle with structure and discipline themselves. It's almost like at a young age, you wouldn't have any kind of structure at all. Like there was no authority figure. There were no rules or regulations for you. You may have just kind of ran wild and just that. You were completely wild. Sorry. It makes me think of, you have Moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the centaur, and centaurs in ancient mythology were said to be mostly belligerent. Some were very intellectual and intelligent, but most of them were belligerent. They were drunk all the time. They were party animals. So that's kind of what this dynamic makes me think of. You may have been that kind of party animal. You were I don't know, you were doing whatever you pleased, whatever you wanted. There was no structure, there was no discipline, no rules. So how do I put this? To be totally honest with you, I feel like I'm not very familiar with this placement, so I apologize if this is not 100% accurate. But the way I would interpret it would be, you grew up without this structure, and so you have this challenge of creating your own structure. Like you're never going to have structure in your life unless you create it for yourself, because that's typically how Saturn works. Wherever Saturn is, it represents something that we don't inherit at all. We have to create for ourselves. So with Saturn in Capricorn, it's the structure that you're never going to have unless you create it. So that is very challenging, because at a young age, you're just going to, again, I think this is a dynamic that from the outside may look really fun, and other people may envy you. Like, wow, this, you're so much fun. You do whatever you want. I wish I could live like that. Is it fun though? I think for you, it may feel, like you'll have no direction. I know I said earlier you do have a direction, but it's all based on your desire. I think at a young age, um, yes, it could be a lot of fun, but there would be no deep security. Like you would feel unhinged. If you're a star, you'd be a rogue star. You don't have a solar system. You're just like flying through space. You don't know where you're going. So you would feel out of control. You wouldn't feel safe. Does that make sense? So it would be very fun, but it wouldn't be safe. Like all those kind of, I'm having trouble articulating this. Like you might feel very fun, or it might be very exciting. You'd be on fire, kind of, but you wouldn't have that deeper sense of security and feeling safe. And does that make sense? So basically, you have the challenge of creating these things for yourself. There is a lot of potential here. You have the potential to be a leader and to be a leader in structure, if that makes sense. And I say that very cautiously because the rest of your chart really just doesn't show that you are necessarily the most structured person. It looks like you are much more adventurous and open, which is great. Live your life, do that, have fun. But again, I think part of you will over time have an increasing desire for structure and for discipline and things like that. And this is something that you'll learn over time. This is common with people who are a lot more adventurous and, fiery and passionate. I think that over time, they become a little bit more mellow as they get a little older. So I think, this is something that I think you've probably already been learning and will continue to learn, how to be kind of a leader of your own structure and discipline, etc. To some extent, that sounds kind of generic, but the reason why is because Saturn is in domicile in Capricorn. So in a way, this is kind of the most basic set of karma or lessons that you could learn. And again, this is kind of separate from the other dynamic I talked about, learning to be at home and just be chill. However, is it separate though? They may kind of combine for you. So maybe part of that structure and discipline is just learning, I don't have to go out and go on some like vacation or spend a bunch of money or whatever it is where you're living that larger than life, if that makes sense. I can have structure. I can just chill at home. I don't know. Maybe that's your structure. Maybe that's how it works for you. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about your upbringing a little bit more, though. So, Sun and Moon are in very different signs from each other. Sun in Cancer, Moon in Sagittarius. This would indicate that your parents were very different from one another. They were inconsistent with you, so you didn't always know growing up what was expected from you. You had these two completely different narratives. Even if you grew up with just one person, that person may have been very multifaceted or inconsistent. So growing up, this would be confusing for you. Again, you wouldn't know what was expected from you. You wouldn't know. It's very unpredictable, right? So that is the more challenging kind of road to go on as a child. But I do think this is beneficial for two reasons. One is because, basically being trained in holding two contradictory ideas in your head at the same time. It's very valuable. One, for having empathy, so if someone is expressing an idea or an experience that you've never experienced, you can still empathize with them, so you've got that empathy there. And then also for learning abstract concepts as well, you have that kind of imagination and that detachment to branch out into these complex or abstract concepts, which I can see with the rest of your chart as well. It does look like you'd be kind of interested in those types of things as well. So anyway, I just think that it's interesting how those types of dynamics come from your upbringing, from the way you were raised. Okay, and then let me just look around. Saturn is in domicile, but it's also at the bottom of the chart, and it's retrograde. So that would indicate that your father was probably more kind of absent. Sun is in the 9th house, which would generally indicate a present father, but then Saturn is at the bottom of the chart and retrograde, which would indicate an absent father. So I would lean a little bit more toward the absent side, but he may have not been completely absent, though. And then the sun is ruled by the moon. Moon is in the 2nd house. So it's harder for me to see about the mother. Some people say that sun has to do with the father and moon has to do with the mother. And if that's the case, then your chart would indicate that your father was a little bit more maybe submissive or like traditionally feminine. Not to say that, let me rephrase that. Like, he may have been very like receptive or kind of nurturing or very like kind of chill, like low energy, so to speak. Like, very different than, the traditional like very dominating or like authoritative type of father that we would expect traditionally. Does that make sense? Um, and then likewise, Moon in Sagittarius would indicate a mother that was very like adventurous and expansive and intellectual. She was always trying different things. And, I say these things loosely. This may or may not be relatable for you, but that's one way of interpreting this type of thing. Okay, let me move on. Let's talk about your career, your reputation. So I've already talked a lot about these. I think you could be very successful at many different careers. Honestly, most people could. But whatever it is, it looks like you are. I mean, what I said earlier, you're someone who's seen as pleasurable. You've got that aesthetic about you. You've got that vibe. Other people want you. They want to be you, etc. You've got that thing going on. So I think you could definitely use that. I don't know how exactly. I think you could be anything involving like fame and attention. So you could be a performer of some kind, maybe something involving like acting or musical ability or I don't know, dancing or even certain like athletic I don't know, I'm not really in that world, so I don't know, but like certain kind of athletics could be part of that as well. If you're an athletic person, that in a way that's kind of like performing. It is performing. What else? Maybe I don't know. It could be a lot of different things. Anything involving like speaking, anything involving a stage and a microphone, pretty much, is where I would naturally kind of. That's where mine goes. Looking at your chart. Um, And then you do have this intellectual side as well. So I think you could use that for whatever your career is. I don't think it's something that everyone will necessarily see in you all the time, but I think you could kind of use that intelligence behind the scenes to kind of guide your career and to influence your performances, activities, whatever it is. I could see you being a great leader as well. You could be like a great like manager or business owner. Because again, like I see you as a number one person, if that makes sense. Like I've heard this idea that in most businesses there's a number one person and a number two person. A number one person is the one that they're the CEO, they're the smooth talker, they're the excellent salesperson, they're the charismatic one, the one that's like suave or beautiful or whatever. They're basically the face of the company. That's kind of what I see you being. And then if you're curious, the number two person is the one that's like behind the scenes, kind of running everything. They're the responsible one. I would be more like a number two person, honestly. Um, but yeah, I could definitely see you playing that kind of role. What else? What else? Midheaven is in Leo, so I haven't talked about the midheaven, but honestly, it's we've already there's already enough kind of recurring themes elsewhere in your chart that it's going to sound very repetitive. Midheaven has to do with career and reputation. With midheaven and Leo, you are like you project Leo energy out into the world. So you are like the sun. You're the center of it all. You are entertaining. You're relatable. You come across powerful, confident. You're not afraid to put yourself out there and to be the person that is, really expressing your authenticity, expressing your uniqueness, your eccentricity, etc. Did I already say that? So again, that just kind of puts us back where we just were. That you could use that for performing, being a leader, etc. Honestly, I think that kind of sums it up. Again, I just want to touch on what I said earlier about you do have Scorpio rising with Pluto there. That also supports you in having that kind of like unique, kind of edgy appearance. Other people like you come across as cool. I'm actually very curious. I'm just sitting here speculating based on your chart. So I'm curious how this adds up, or how this kind of lines up with reality. But But that's what I would speculate based on your chart. You come across as cool. You come across as edgy, attractive. Other people envy you. They want to be you. They want to watch you. They're obsessed with you. Whatever. That's honestly what I'd really see. So definitely a leader. I've said before that about half the charts I read are meant for kind of leadership positions, and the other half aren't. You're probably like in the top 10% though of charts that to me stand out as a leader. Maybe even less than 10%, maybe like the top 5%. Part of it's just being born like in the middle of the day. It puts the inner planets at the top of your chart, so it gives you that potential for being a public figure and dealing with a lot of attention, things like that. So that's the main theme I see for your career and reputation. Something involving pleasure. This sounds so cheesy. I could see you being like an actor, model. I don't know. It honestly reminds me of Kim Kardashian's chart. I read her chart. She also has this theme of projecting a very pleasurable appearance. Like she represents pleasure and abundance to so many people, if that makes sense. So in a way, that's kind of how you are. You represent that for people in some kind of way. So it could be performing, or it could be like representing a brand. If you represented a brand that people associate with pleasure in some kind of way. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the romantic part of your life. Who are you attracted to? Like, what traits are you attracted to? What zodiac signs are you attracted to? And more importantly, who are you truly compatible with as well? So we'll talk about mostly Mars, Venus, and the descendants. It's kind of convenient for me because Venus and Mars are conjunct. So in your chart, we don't really need to differentiate Venus and Mars. They are agreed. They're married. They're acting as a unit, basically. So again, that makes it very easy for me to assess your compatibility because Venus and Mars are kind of similar anyway. They both have to do with attraction. When it comes to romance and things like that, they both have to do with what kind of person you're attracted to, as well as how you assert yourself romantically and sexually, etc. So with Venus and Mars conjunct in Leo, I know I talked about that earlier, but when it comes to romantic attraction and things like that, well, for one, you'd be very forthright with your attraction. Again, you kind of express yourself like a Leo. So you know what you want, like I talked about earlier. You know what you want. So in other words, when you meet someone, if you're attracted to them or not. You probably feel very strongly. You may be someone who feels, very, very passionate. Like you may fall in love very, very hard, very quickly, or like lust as well. Love, lust, passion, attraction, infatuation. You would be someone who I would think would be infatuated, like obsessed with someone. And it's not necessarily just like a fleeting thing. Like when you feel for someone, you feel very strongly. Venus and Mars are both in Leo, which is fixed fire again. So, you like when you see someone that you're attracted to, you're very attracted to them. You're not shy about it. You're very straightforward, very blunt. You kind of just say, here I am. If you like me, cool. And if not, that's fine. But you're unashamed. You just present yourself as you are. And where was I going with that? I was going somewhere with that. You're very forthright. Oh, and you feel so strongly that like you're very loyal. You're fiercely loyal. For you it's not just shallow. It's not like Aries where you're just going after what you want just for the chase of it. You probably do enjoy the chase, but it's not just about the chase for you. You really want to lock in what you're passionate about, whoever you're attracted to. You're consumed by your desire. So it's a big deal to you. It's Leo is also kind of like family energy, I think, as well as Cancer, but Leo is too. So yeah, when you're attracted to someone, you really want to lock them down, so to speak. Maybe that's not the best way. It's not the best choice of words, but you want to have a really committed relationship. You want to be loyal to them. You want to find someone loyal as well. And this is what leads me to my next point. So Venus and Mars have not just to do with how you express yourself. They also have to do with the kind of person you're attracted to. So the kind of person you'd be attracted to would be someone who either has strong Leo placements or basically just gives off like Leo vibes. Like they don't necessarily have to have Leo placements to have Leo themes, if that makes sense, or Leo like themes. So, in other words, to translate, Venus, Mars, and Leo suggest that you're attracted to someone fun, outgoing, confident, someone who's very sure of themselves. And I could hear a skeptic saying, "Isn't that true for everyone?" Honestly, no. Honestly, no. Some people want, people want all different kinds of things. Some people want someone really smart, or some people want someone really down to earth, really humble. For you, you want that person that is really confident, someone who has a good time, someone who's very action oriented. So they are, like you want to adventure with someone, you want to go on trips, you want to do stuff with them. Um, what else? So yeah, this could literally be someone with strong Leo placements. That kind of person is going to be all those things, and they're also going to be fiercely loyal as well. So it would just kind of work out where you'd be attracted to them, and they would be receptive of the way you express yourself romantically as well. But they don't necessarily have to have Leo placements. They could also have other fire placements, because any of the fire signs are going to have a lot in common. Like Aries, for example, is also going to be very forthright, very direct, very confident, very action oriented, very adventurous. Same with Sagittarius. So really any of the fire signs could be very attractive for you. Aries is going to clash with you because of your strong Cancer placements. They're going to form a square with you, a 90-degree angle. So that in itself could be, clashing is not necessarily always bad. It could be kind of like a rivalry. There could be that edginess there that's pushing you, that could actually be driving the attraction. However, it could also be it could be very edgy. There could be a lot of like fighting or kind of aggression there. So it could go kind of either way with Aries. Sagittarius, I think, would be more comfortable. You have your moon there, so people with strong Sagittarius placements are you're gonna have that potential for a really deep connection. And Sagittarius is similar enough to Leo that you're gonna have that attraction there as well. So, but again, any of the fire signs are gonna be fiery, fun, action oriented, charismatic. That is a huge part of what you are attracted to. But more importantly, when it comes to your long-term compatibility, I would more look to the descendant for that. You have ascendant in Scorpio, descendant in Taurus. Ascendant is the eastern horizon. It has to do with who you are. Descendant is the western horizon. It has to do with what you see in a partner. It has to do with the other person, so to speak. So with ascendant in Scorpio, this paints the picture to me that in a relationship, you are going to be the one who is more provocative, more edgy, more out there. You're more so the person in the relationship that is very creative. You're the one bringing like a lively energy into the mix. You're bringing that passion. You're making the relationship fun and exciting. And the kind of person you'd be attracted to would be more the rock. They're the grounded one. They're the practical one. They're the responsible one. They're the one making sure everything is running smoothly, and maybe they're the more fiscally responsible person, etc. Honestly, this isn't unusual. I see this in most of the charts I read. Most of us we fall into either the responsible one or the like lively creative one. So you would more so be the lively creative one. You'd be the dreamer, etc. You may also be the more emotional person in the relationship as well. But you're looking for someone very structured. You want someone who is very strong-willed, not just in the sense of being very fiery and outgoing, very confident, but also deep inner confidence. You want someone truly confident, someone who is someone who doesn't necessarily have to show off anything. Like they've got that combination of being very confident but also very humble at the same time, like true confidence. I think that's kind of what you're seeking. And again, I just want to stress someone very strong-willed. Like whoever you're attracted to is probably very stubborn. I think that would actually be very attractive for you. And you may kind of butt heads sometimes, but that's not necessarily the worst thing. That can actually drive the attraction more. Or the way I've put it before is, I don't think you always have to agree with someone to have a strong relationship. You just have to have mutual understanding and mutual respect and mutual attraction. That's very different than agreeing with. I think agreeing can actually kind of be a turnoff sometimes. It can be boring. I mean, it depends. I don't know. So, but anyway, so you may be attracted to someone with strong Taurus placements or other Earth placements. Any of these Earth placements are going to be down to earth, practical, grounded, kind of more humble, and you do tend to lack Earth energy. So this is something that you don't really have. You can often be very ungrounded. You can get lost in your own emotion, your own passion. So someone with that like just chill, very kind of heavy energy, it's gonna help to ground you. It's gonna bring you back to earth, so to speak. And again, it's something that you lack. So you're naturally kind of drawing that out. You want to find that stability. You want someone, again, I already said you want someone very loyal, but I think you wouldn't mind someone who's a little bit predictable, someone very structured, orderly, practical, someone who's a little bit routine oriented. You're going to find this with any of the earth signs, but especially Taurus. Taurus is probably the most consistent, most reliable, but Virgo and Capricorn as well. Capricorn might be interesting. It would be kind of an opposites attract. It opposes your Cancer placement, so they're going to be the most structured kind of sign, I would say. So that could be really refreshing for you. Virgo, I'm less crazy about. They are different than the other earth signs because Virgo is intellectual, and honestly, I don't think you're necessarily wanting that. Virgo kind of overthinks everything, so I just don't think you really want that. I think you and Virgo can kind of drive each other crazy a little bit because you're someone who's more about like instant gratification and expansion and exploration. You want to adventure. You don't really want to just sit and like think about everything. You want to go out and do stuff. Virgo is going to kind of sit and kind of analyze. So I don't see that being interesting for you. I think Taurus or Capricorn would be a better fit. So those are the main things. Fire and earth would be the elements that you're more attracted to, particularly Leo, Sagittarius, or Taurus. Going back to Capricorn for a sec, Capricorn's going to be a little bit weird for you because, yes, they are structured, they're grounding, that can be refreshing. But you have Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune all in Capricorn. These are outer planets. So in other words, Capricorn for you is going to be actually very weird or very unusual. That may not necessarily be bad. The relationship could feel kind of otherworldly. What else? Capricorn's going to challenge you. They're going to kind of push you to grow and evolve, which, again, that in itself could be good or bad depending on if you're open to that or not. It could put a stressor on the relationship, but on the other hand, it could help you to grow and evolve, which could be uplifting. That really just depends on if you want it or not. Neptune there makes Capricorn like fantastical or larger than life for you, which that too could be good or bad. You may not really see them clearly, and Uranus just makes that sign unpredictable for you. So Capricorns would be a really weird one. Not necessarily good or bad, just it'd be a very strange and unpredictable and challenging relationship. So yeah, I would more be drawn to Leo, Sagittarius, or Taurus. But let's briefly go through the air and water signs as well. So air signs are interesting because you really don't have much going on in the air signs, hardly at all. Jupiter is your only air planet in Gemini. So the air signs, they're light, they're detached, they're intellectual. They don't really take anything too seriously because they're not nearly as passionate as you probably are. They do, of course, have feelings, but their feelings are fleeting. They're kind of vague. They're ambiguous. So I think that would just be difficult, and I think it'd be difficult for you to connect with them, and I don't think you'd be attracted to them because you're wanting someone very decisive, someone very straightforward, very confident. Air signs generally aren't like that. They are so detached from themselves, especially Libra and Gemini. They're constantly changing. They're constantly trying different things. They're indecisive. I really just don't think that would be attractive for you at all. If anything, Aquarius is a fixed air sign, so they're the most like strong-willed of the air signs. So that could be kind of attractive for you, but it's just gonna be so different than how you are. Aquarius really isn't comfortable with expressing feelings. They're not comfortable with that. So I'm really drawn to the air signs less than any of the other elements. Water signs you're going to have a lot in common with because you've got Sun, Mercury, and Ascendant all in water signs, along with Pluto as well. So any of the water signs, Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio, they are such deep feelers. They've got that intensity, that feeling to them. They've got that strong intuition, that creativity. And again, to some extent, you have all of those things too. So you're going to relate very well. You could have a really passionate relationship, or maybe a friendship. I do get a lot of couples that have the same ascendant sign. So that could be part of it. But other than that, though, someone who has strong water energy, particularly strong Cancer energy, you will relate a lot with them. But I would see it generally being more of a friendship and less of a romantic connection, with the exception of Scorpio rising. Another Scorpio rising person, you're just going to relate to. You're going to be on the same page all the time, because the way you approach life is going to be the same, or similar, I should say. So that could be either a friendship or a romantic relationship. But other than that, Cancer, dealing with another person who's very sensitive, very emotional, it'll be easy. It'll be familiar. I think it could especially be a really great friendship. I just don't see it being as romantically interesting for you, unless they've got some other combination. Fire and earth is really what you're wanting. You're wanting someone very straightforward. Okay, and I know that you're currently in a relationship. I don't remember. I know I did a synastry reading, but I've done a lot of readings recently. I don't remember what the true nature of your relationship is, but maybe that's good though, because I can just give you my objective opinion on the compatibility for this chart alone. I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty much what I see for your reading. So I hope this was helpful or interesting, or confirmed a few things for you. As always, let me know if you have any feedback or questions whatsoever. I'm totally open to continuing this dialogue. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the reading. Have a great day.